Hello, I forgot to light the candle, so hold on just a moment. Let's get that lit. There we go. And turn the phone on to airplane or filming. Focus mode is filming. Right, we are good. How are you guys? It's lovely to be back with you. Hopefully you got the notifications that I put up yesterday saying that we were going to be going live again today at 3:30. So here we are. I'm hoping it's going to buffer in a minute. It looks like it's a little poor quality right now, but as far as I know, everything is okay. That's why I need to pause the upload. There we go. Right, it should now come in okay in just a few seconds time because I paused, as you know, in Riverside. I have to pause that live upload. So how are you doing, guys? I thought what we would do... Ooh, I haven't got the mic near me. Let's try again. Should we start that again? Should we start that all over again? How are you? Right, everything should be okay now. We've got the stream should be coming through strong enough in just a moment, and I think we are all okay. So we are live, and it's another Wednesday afternoon with Talking Tech, and I've got some things I was going to talk about today. You might have seen on the post that I thought we'd talk about iOS. And I'm just concerned that has not come in yet. It's still not looking good on the stream, is it? I reckon it will come in a moment. I'm not going to fuss too much. I know I've paused the live upload in Riverside, so we should be all okay. Right, let's assume that we're okay. Yes, so what I thought we would do today is talk about iOS 17 and what's coming up in that, and maybe what you guys are looking forward to as well. There's plenty to begin to pull apart. I've got some notes made up of things I wanted to get through, but before we got going on that, and don't forget, if there's anything you want me to talk about, then just be sure to let me know, get involved with the chat. I'll say hello to you, and if you feel like dropping me a little bit of support here with some super chats and stickers and super thanks and all that, that'd be absolutely marvellous. So before we get going talking about iOS, I'm waiting for a few people to join in with us because we are now live, as I can see. I thought I would just talk about AirPods Max for a starter. You can see a pair just behind me at the moment, and they sound absolutely fantastic. They really do. They sound stunningly good. But unfortunately, they're now beginning to seem quite dated. Now, it's unfortunate when you consider that they are called AirPods Max and they should be at the top of the game. They should be the best that there are. And yet somehow they're not. AirPods Pro 2 are by far the better pair of headphones at the moment, the way things stand. So WWDC, it was kind of clear that this is going to be a pivotal moment for AirPods Max. Either Apple are going to discontinue them altogether and they're going to sync without trace, or they're going to get some updates, which is what I hope is going to happen. Because, to be honest with you, I'm just trying to pull up a blog that I wrote today as well. They are too good to... They are way too good to not be rekindled and to be just let to drift into abyss of nowhere. The sound on AirPods Max is really, really good. But it all comes down to the problem that, of course, they've only got the H1 chip in them. And the H1 chip is now fairly old. It means that it's lacking the ability to receive all of the new updates. Let me just find this blog that I wrote this morning, because there's a couple of points in there that I just wanted to bring up. Let me just find that post, hoping that Ulysses has updated itself. Good, it has. So with headphones now, they're becoming more and more like mini computers on our heads, basically. They rely very, very heavily on, obviously, the updates, the firmware updates, and all the computational algorithms that go on to attenuate sound and to make the active noise cancelling as good as it is. Now, if you bought AirPods Pro 2, you'll know how good that is. It's a really good bit of technology. How it works, I don't know. All I know is that it does. Now, just before we get back to AirPods Max, I put out a video yesterday that you may or may not have seen, which was all about the Beats Studio Buds Plus. Now, I bought those purely to review on the channel. Whether I would have bought them if I wasn't a tuber and making content, I don't know. But the thing is that Beats have always looked kind of cool, haven't they? Beats have always been the cool kids on the block. They're the ones that all the superstars, all the baseball stars, basketball stars. Serena used to walk out onto a centre court in Wimbledon wearing Beats headphones. They've always been kind of cool. And this new pair of Studio Buds Plus, or Beats Studio Buds Plus, are actually a really nice looking pair of headphones. They come in that kind of translucent case. Hold on, I've got them here. They come in a translucent case and they look really, really pretty. They look really, really good. But the only problem comes with them, or the problem comes with them, is when you actually start to use them. And they sound, in my mind, really, really bad. Now, I hadn't read any reviews about them. I hadn't watched any content or videos about them until I'd put my video up. Obviously, I do that to protect my integrity. Sounds like I'm being very grandiose. But I do that to make sure that I review whatever product it is, whatever device it is, in the way that I feel is the truest to it. And so I listened to the Beats Studio Buds Plus, and they sound really thin. The biggest problem with them is they've got, well, there's a few problems with them. The active noise cancelling doesn't sound good at all. In fact, when I first used it, and obviously I tried to use it away from home when I'm out and about and say walking or running or whatever, then that's when I put it on, and I had to double check that it was on. It's weak. Now, again, that could be because I'm so used to AirPods Pro 2 and how good they are. But even so, the active noise cancelling wasn't what I was used to. It wasn't as effective. Other reviewers, quite often ones that seem to have been sent the unit, oddly enough, I don't know if that carried their opinion, they said they seem to think that the noise cancelling was okay. But I can tell you, the other thing it does, as soon as you turn the active noise cancelling on those Beats Studio Buds, is it can changes the whole EQ of the track that you're listening to. Everything changes. It doesn't just get rid of the background noise, it just kills any kind of energy that's in the music or whatever it is you're listening to. Even if it's a podcast and spoken word, it just becomes very, very dull, and there's no atmosphere to it. It doesn't feel the same content. So there's problems with the ANC. Then it comes down to the audio, and the audio is again a problem. It's very, very thin. There's with audio, without getting kind of boring on it, a lot of the action takes place in the mids where the voice is. That's all in the mids. So what a good EQ will try to do is pull those mids up, so that, say, if it's a vocal track on an album that you're listening to, the vocals will try and sit and shimmer just above the rest of whatever's going on around it, the instruments around it. And that's where the Studio Buds, these little babies, really, really fail. There's no separation. Everything's just one muddy mixture of nothingness. So they weren't particularly good. But back to the noise cancelling. Hello, Michael. It's kind of about, I'm just starting off before a few people join in with us. I was mentioning the Studio Beats, yes, Michael, but we're actually going to be talking about iOS and what's coming up later on in the fall as we get our new iOS land, and kind of the highlights I may have seen. And also, hello, Sharon. Sharon, hello. Hello, Sharon, and thank you for that lovely comment last week as well. Glad you could catch us this time, because I know you're over in the States. So I'm guessing you're maybe East Coast. You're about, what, 5 or 6 hours behind us. So I'm trying to do the maths quickly. About 9, 10 in the morning, I'm guessing, something like that maybe. Anyway, Sharon, lovely to have you along with us. Yes, I thought Beats. We are going to get on to back to talking about the AirPods Max and then eventually onto iOS. But just carrying on with Beats, I too thought that Beats were going very heavy on the bass. These certainly aren't. They're not heavy on anything. If you were thinking of buying them, I'd think twice. If you need them to go with an Android phone and you want easy pairing and you want some ANC, then yeah, I can understand why you'd buy them. But if you're in the Apple space, then looking at the prices here in the UK, they're £10 cheaper than AirPods 3rd gen, and they're £70 cheaper than AirPods Pro 2. So they position them carefully there, but I reckon 10:30 Michigan. Yeah. So what we hear, we just gone 3:30 here in the UK. So lovely to have you with us over in the States, guys. Thank you. It's lovely to have you on board. So I'm not saying that the £70 difference between, say, the Beats and the AirPods Pro 2 is a drop in the ocean. It's a lot of money. 70 quid is, or £70, dollars, roughly speaking, is a lot of money. But these things tend to last you for a good few years. So if you were going to buy a pair, I would just suggest maybe it's worth holding off, even if you just need to wait a little bit to buy the AirPods Pro 2. As I say, if you're putting the Beats with Android phones, brilliant. You're getting some great features with them. The other things I didn't like about the Beats was the fact that you didn't get much. Well, you had to choose what functionality you wanted on the press and hold. You either have to have it set to volume or to the switch between the noise cancelling modes, between transparency and full ANC. So I wasn't particularly impressed with those. But coming back to the Max, which is where I started, at the moment they're kind of in the middle of nowhere. AirPods Max, they're 2.5, coming up 3 years old. They've never really received any attention since they were released, and it's showing they've got the H1 chip in, which means they're not getting a lot of the new bells and whistles that are coming later in iOS 17 later this year. There's going to be some updates coming for AirPods, and one of those ones is adaptive audio. And adaptive audio is going to bring together sort of part of the transparency mode and part of the active noise cancelling, and it's supposed to, again, just cut out background noise whilst lifting what you're listening to a certain level and try and make that a safe level for you to listen to your content, but without actually flicking on and altering the volume. So it actually sounds really, really clever what it's going to do. I'm just looking at some of the other notes that I had made here. And the other one that's coming is personalized audio as well, or personal audio. And that is going to be, well, if it works, that is going to sound fantastic, because the idea with that is AI will learn when you're starting to speak with somebody. And as you start that conversation, again, not only will transparency mode kick in, but also it will work out what frequencies you need to lower so you can have and it will recognize a voice in front of you, and again in the mids pick up their frequencies so that you can hear the speech in front of you. So if that works, it's going to be absolutely stunning. I've got no reason to doubt that it won't work, because last year, of course, Apple came along with AirPods Pro 2 and amazed us with what that H2 chip is capable of, and they clearly know that they've got more in the bank. So I think you'd be a foolish man to say that Apple won't succeed when they bring these new features out later in the year. But at the moment, as it stands, AirPods Max, and by their name, they should be the best AirPods that Apple make, aren't going to be able to get it. All they're going to be able to do is you'll be able to mute your voice by using the digital crown, and also they're meant to be an improvement to the auto connect, auto device catching mode, which at the moment is a little bit hit and miss. It either works really well or it just screws everything up and it begins to try to pick up audio from left, right and centre, or of course won't connect to the one bit of audio that you do want it to connect to and listen to. So we shall see how that pans out. But at the moment, that's the only improvements that AirPod Max they're getting, and it's such a shame because they are such a great sounding pair of headphones. There's a couple of other things I'd like to see them do if they are going to get some improvements and going to get some love. I wouldn't mind maybe some sort of design change with those two metal bars that go over the head. It'd be nice maybe to see if that could be changed to be a little bit more comfortable for when you're wearing them for longer sessions. At the moment, they do become quite heavy on the head and a little bit uncomfortable. So while they're looking at doing things to improve the AirPods Max, assuming that they're going to keep them on board, that would be one of the things I'd like to see. And also maybe they can make them a fraction lighter as well. Lossless audio, if it's possible to get lossless audio into it, that would be absolutely amazing. I'm not sure how hard it is to get that codec through wireless Bluetooth headphones, but if they could do anything about that, that would be amazing. And lastly, the carry case. Now, I'm not deeply affronted by the carry case. The carry case, charging case, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really offend me deeply. But I know that there are people out there that find the carry case and the charge case really, really, well, they get so wound up about it. And I don't understand why. I don't see why. It does the job. And if you're putting them in a rucksack, it's not that hard to protect them. But all I'm saying is if Apple are going to do anything with AirPods Max, then maybe they can make a few other changes. We know they've got to do something to them later this year because, of course, they've got to change the charging port on them. At the moment, that's Lightning, and we know they've got to switch that over before, I think it's spring of 24 to USB-C. So all I'm saying is while they've got it, maybe the case cracked open and they're putting in an H2 chip and also changing the charging port, then maybe at the same time They could think about doing something about these other areas I'm talking, weight and design slightly. Apple aren't one to radically change designs though, and it's similar to the way that they've never made colourful AirPods. Everybody knows that white shape, and it's instantly recognisable that you've got Apple AirPods in. So I don't think we're going to see anything radically different with AirPods Max. But all I'm saying is they could make some iterative changes, and just while they're freshening them up, they could just make them that little bit different and give us something new. But I just think if you were to go and spend, and in fact, let's talk about people about to spend. I am pretty sure my daughter doesn't watch this, but it's her birthday coming up at the end of July. I went up to see her in London over the weekend where she lives, and I have got an idea about buying her AirPods Max. Now, of course, she's not involved in the whole Apple ecosystem world like we are if we're watching this, and she won't care if there's some of these new features, the personalized audio isn't on there, for instance. So I think for me to buy them for her for a present is kind of safe, because she will enjoy using them as they are. And being in London, that's the other thing. People have started wearing AirPod Max a whole lot now, and it's a shame that they're just beginning to come out of this kind of clouded, almost niche that they were in for all the years, because they were so expensive partly, and also people were afraid to wear them out in public because they cost so much. But they're just beginning to come out of that corner now, and it'd be a real shame if Apple don't do something just to bring them up to date and make people who are going to buy them actually not regret spending that much money on a pair of AirPods and come away feeling they've been shortchanged by those that have just bought AirPods Pro 2. So that's my thoughts on AirPods Max. I love them, but there's a few little caveats and a few buts in there. So I hope they don't get dropped. But WWDC was very telling, because all of the new features that they released were all only going to the H2 chip and the AirPods Pro 2. So clearly something is going to happen with AirPods Max, I think. Now, let's begin looking at iOS and what's happening later this year. Obviously, WWDC was very much taken up with the news of Apple Vision. Clearly, that's really what everyone was interested in at the conference that happened at the beginning of June. But of course, being the developers conference and the annual time that we always get it, Apple also announced the new iOS that are coming out. Now, I'm not here to defend Apple at all, but they kind of need, I think they need a fair crack. Oh, if you weren't on last week, you'll know that Alice does join me. She is just out of frame, and Alice is here with me now. She will quieten down, but she does have a very loud voice. So apologies while Alice is piping up, but she'll quieten down in a minute. Yeah, so Apple, I think, you need to think for a moment how much pressure is on Apple for every year for them to come up with something new and meaningful when it comes to operating systems and what we want and what we're going to use. The trouble is that the bar is already set so high that it's hard to think where it's almost like with Apple Silicon. Apple Silicon is so good at the moment. Wondering if they'll release a new pair of Macs to complement the Vision Pro. Is it possible? Yeah. I can't imagine they'd want to add even more weight to it. Yeah, exactly that, Michael. I mean, I know they've got the built-in spatial audio on the headband, haven't they, on Vision, Apple Vision? But yes, I think there is going to be an option for you to wear your own AirPods. But as you say, that headset, Apple Vision, is going to be plenty heavy enough as it is without putting on a pair of heavy AirPods Max on there as well. Hello, Alice. Yes, I know. You're not really hungry. So getting back to iOS, to say it's got to the point now with Apple Silicon, for instance, it's so good. It's so good that it's hard to imagine where they're going to go next. And this is why laptop sales, even for Apple, have slowed down to some degree. And it's very much that case with iOS. I was feeling that we've got used to Apple updating, doing a complete change every year with the OS for Mac and iOS and iPad OS being the main ones. We get so used to it that we've come to expect that Apple are going to do that every year. And maybe it's us that are being unrealistic in what we're expecting. Maybe we could just expect Apple to update once every 2 years. And on the year off, we would carry on getting the updates and any big fixes that people were complaining about. And then that would give them a 2-year period to actually come back with something really big, really meaningful, really important, and begin to shock us. And Sharon's just said the leakers pump up expectations so high, people are actually disappointed. Exactly, Sharon. This is the point. We were told all about, for instance, Apple Watch, weren't we? And the stacks that are coming, the smart stacks that are coming. Well, we were told that Apple Watch was going to have a major overhaul this year on its OS, and it did. It was big, I'll grant it that. I know there were a load of health benefits to it, and for cycling, for hiking, all sorts of health benefits. But I mean, when you actually look at the physical changes that we're going to get in Apple Watch, really it came down to some new watch faces, and also Alice will have to quiet down in a moment. I knew I'd take a chance, but I didn't have the heart to lock her out in the middle of the afternoon, so I hope you're not offended by cat noise. She will quiet down. But it does show you that it's very live. But the smart stacks, yeah, I missed the Siri watch face when it first came out because I didn't start wearing an Apple Watch until last year after WWDC. I bought my first Apple Watch and I've been wearing it ever since then. And yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I absolutely love it. But I guess, again, it's a case of it does its job really well. We know what it's capable of now. How much better can something the size of a watch get? It's delivering us what we need. And as Sharon said, the leakers try and bump it up to make it sound so impressive that something mind-boggling is coming along. And if it doesn't, then we kind of get disappointed. And I just think that's a little bit unfair. And the OS this year were, I think across the board, it's fair to say, they were more lifestyle changes than anything, and they were all just general little improvements here and there that are just going to help us enjoy whatever device we're using that little bit better. And yeah, I believe the same. That is true with iPad. I'm not a big iPad user, but I believe that iPad has had some small changes. Mac, for instance, well, all I could really see on Mac was that we're getting widgets and we're getting the live wallpapers that come straight from Apple TV. So, you know, again, it's showing that they're almost running out of ideas. And I'm not meaning to come down hard on Apple. I'm not meaning to say that what they do, they're clearly putting in a lot of work. And we also know that this year they had a lot of manpower issues because they were getting Apple Vision ready for launch. And a lot of the brain power was being pulled away from other projects, including the OS updates. All those resources were being used on Apple Vision. So this year possibly was a bigger strain on them than most. But even so, I don't think we'd really struggle with a sort of biannual update. I don't see what more we could really expect. I was just looking, iOS, for instance, the notes I made there, the big change I could see were voicemail, the live voicemail, of course, where it's going to begin, if you let your phone ring out, it's going to begin giving you the message, I think in text form, of who's speaking. So, or you know, you actually hear it, don't you? You hear who's leaving a message and you can decide whether you want to pick it up. And there's going to be posters for your contact card and for AirDrop. But of course, posters will only work if you're calling somebody else with another iPhone. It doesn't work from iPhone to Android. And of course, AirDrop, well, AirDrop's great anyway. And if they're making some improvements for AirDrop, I'm all for that. But again, it all just goes to show that a lot of these changes they're making are fairly minor. This year, more than most, and it's understandable. But I just think we kind of need to be realistic of what we're expecting from Apple on an annual basis. And is it the only reason we feel disappointed in them because we're setting our expectations too high? I don't know. It was just a thought that I was having earlier this week, and I just wanted to run it past you and see if I was sort of completely barking up the wrong tree, or whether that was something that you thought, would you be disappointed if we didn't get annual updates, big annual updates at the conference every year, and giving us new OS? Because this year there really wasn't all that much, and we'll get used to it. And this is the other thing that always makes me laugh, is how quickly we all settle back down. You'll get something new come out. It was well, certainly the same. If we talk about the iMac, for instance, when the Apple Silicon iMac came out, all anyone could talk about for about a month, 3 weeks to a month, was Apple Silicon and the iMac and how wonderful it was. Now suddenly it's never talked about at all. It's seen as old hat. Everything just changes and moves on so quickly. We've got such a disposable attitude towards our tech, and also towards our attention span towards that new tech is very short as well. We're always demanding something new. And we're going through a spell where it's really hard to buy a bad camera or a bad phone or a bad laptop. I'm sure if you really put your mind to it, you could probably find something bad, but it's pretty hard to do. and we're spoiled, and we should rejoice almost the kind of era that we're living in, because things are so good out of the box. They work so well. I remember when I used to get a new iPhone, how complicated it was to set up. And even down to the fact that, not that it makes it so hard, but you used to have to do a manual backup to iCloud. It was just a much more laborious process. Now suddenly it's so simple. When I set up my new MacBook Pro last year, I hadn't set up a new MacBook in, I suppose, about 2 years. And in that period of time, it had become so much easier and so much quicker and way less of a headache. It really was. And that's all because we're living in such a great era of tech. And I think sometimes we just need to sit back, pull back just a little bit, and realize we're actually in a really good spot at the moment. And when I was over on Medium, where you may know I write every day, I had a reader over there. Carl St. James made a very good point this morning when we were discussing OS. Mike saying, definitely understand that it's like that everywhere and every medium music. We want new album. Yep, exactly that. Exactly that, Michael. Yeah, our demand for content is sky high. And it was very much the case through COVID. Of course, through COVID, the demand was even higher because people were locked at home so much. They were demanding as much content as possible. At that time, I was still on radio. And the demand for radio and radio shows and podcasts, just for the company as much as anything else, was huge. But now, as soon as an artist has released an album, it's gone again. The shelf life and the half-life of it is so incredibly short, and it's kind of our fault. And look, I like gadgets as much as the next person. I love new gadgets, and when the new OS comes out later this year, I'll be one of the first to be trying it. I don't put betas on, actually. I don't run betas because I haven't got enough well, I could probably put Sonoma on my MacBook Air because I don't rely on that day to day. So if that was to play up, but I've never run betas. Show's just saying most industries use annual updates. Cars, someone will need to do something, but what the latest? Yeah, exactly. 3 to 4 complete refreshes. Yeah, exactly, Sharon. You're right, and this is the point. I know that we've got used to it, and I think it's us driving the market at the moment. If we were to say to manufacturers and suppliers that maybe we're not too worried about getting something that's brand new this year, just keep things ticking on, just make everything that we've got work that bit better. I mean, for instance, I was talking about AirDrop, which I love and use virtually every day in one way or another. But equally, it went through a spell not so long ago where it wasn't so clever. It wasn't working particularly well. And that went on for a time. Universal Control recently stopped working for me, which again was a problem. And if Apple could get on top of those problems quicker in the OS, rather than necessarily looking to develop something newer, fresher, more exciting, and moving on to the next thing, I think maybe nestling down and just finding the core problems they've got with the existing OS and making that as good as it can possibly be might not be a bad thing. Again, it was just a thought. And I was just going on to what this reader over on Medium said earlier on today when we were talking about, he left me a message on there, and we were talking about OS. He was making the point that maybe, again, they need to focus on making the current OS as good as it can be, and was talking possibly about the idea of the way, for instance, larger phones now cannot be used one-handed, and maybe a redesign of the user interface would be better placed than a new OS, meaning he was suggesting, for instance, that one hand should be able to operate a phone entirely. At the moment, the phones are so big and so cumbersome that you can't do that. So again, maybe icons could sink towards the bottom of the screen. So it's once you I don't know, maybe they cascade down when you decide. It could almost be like a smart stacks kind of thing. When you've decided what you're going to use, you've got a bunch of smart stacks down the bottom that are all very easily accessible for the main apps that you use on a regular basis or for that period of the day even. And it'd just be easy to use one hand. I really got what he meant. Also, maybe notifications would be better off all towards the bottom of the screen. That again could be an idea. We've got used to the larger phone, but I think the larger phones now become cumbersome. I've only got the 14, not the Pro Max, just the 14 Pro. That is okay to use one hand. I wanted to get the Pro Max, but for that release weekend, I needed it for the channel. In the UK, I couldn't get my hands on a Pro Max, so I went for the Pro. And to be honest, it's good. Again, this year, I will probably swap out as much as anything to talk about on the channel and to review. I don't really need the new phone. The 14 Pro is going to be Can you drop the screen down now? Can't you drop the screen down now? I don't think you can. I think you can set icon. Obviously, your favorite icons towards the bottom of the screen, but I don't know if you can do anything else. Maybe there's a tip and trick that you can share with us. That'd be handy if you know something we don't, Sharon. I'd really appreciate it. And what phone are you using, Sharon? Are you on the 14? I don't know how new your phone is. So I'll be getting the 15, but the 15 doesn't again sound. Maybe the Pro Max is going to get the periscope lens. And when I bought that phone, when I bought this 14 Pro last year, the main reason I got it was to use the camera on as my main camera for the YouTube channel. And it did a good job. It was a massive improvement from the iPhone that I was using. And I bought this with a terabyte of storage on it because I knew that I was going to be getting a lot of video files on there. But now I've got the Canon, now I'm shooting these and recording with a DSLR camera. I really don't need all of that storage on. And I don't particularly use that camera that often. Obviously, for quick family things, yes, I will do. Wimaway, yes, you can if you swipe down. Oh, really, can you? Okay, that's interesting to know. I will be looking into that then, because these are the ideas. This is why it's always good to share these ideas around, because you know what it's like. You sit at home and you get used to your own ways of working, and then you miss other things. And I'm by no means saying that I know everything. Clearly, I don't. And Wimaway, lovely to have you on board. Thank you for joining in this afternoon. And it's great that we can sort of talk and share things out and learn. And you can help me learn things, which will also mean, well, they're doing that, the ads in, they're giving you ads in the middle of this. When they do ads, does it cut me off completely, or does it just run ads on the bottom of the screen? I don't know. Let me know. I don't know if they literally cut me off halfway through and you don't get to see me, which is not necessarily a bad thing, or whether they just run the ads as a ticker tape at the bottom. Sorry about the adverts, but they kind of do help pay the bills a little bit. We know that Google and YouTube do like to earn their crust out of me. And talking of which, if you do want to thank me at all for being on these live streams, don't forget you can do super thanks, super chats, and super stickers, and all those sort of things, which just all help go towards running the costs of the stations. But Winway, it's exactly what it's saying, but it drops down the whole screen. I'm with you. It cut me off completely. Oh well, that's adverts for you, Michael. I'm assuming they're not too long. You didn't seem to be away from me for all that long. So then, now that we're chatting back and forth, and we've got a few people involved with the conversation, I'm just wondering, what things are you really looking forward to on iOS this year? Definitely understand it. Yeah, it's weird. When I used to watch YouTube, before we get back to what we're looking forward to in iOS, I used to hear creators talking about supporting the channel. I wondered why would I need to support the channel? How does that possibly help? And now, of course, being the other side of the fence, I totally understand it. I've been basically doing anything. All of my day to day is to do with content creation. I spent the morning writing the blog that I write every day, and that got written and then gets posted onto my website, posted to Medium, blah, blah, blah. That's the first bit done. Then I began to put together some notes for this live stream. And then, of course, I had to get the studio set up for live streaming. Tomorrow is again going to be another content creation day. I'm driving off to meet Alex, my co-host of the podcast, Minus 16, and we're going to record that. We do that every 2 weeks. And the last podcast we did went down really, really well, looking at the numbers. And I think the only difference was that we were actually together in his studio. We were side by side rather than doing it remotely on video. So where possible, we're going to try and get together and actually sit and record the podcast in his studio, because I think it just works better seeing the dynamics of two people together. So that's the way the next couple of days, it's all about content creation. That's why any support that the channel can get really does help, because also there's a Samsung monitor I'm thinking of buying to review on the channel. They've just released the new M8 smart monitor, and I'm thinking of getting it to compare to the studio display that's behind me. I mean, it shouldn't be a comparison because, of course, it's only 4K, not 5K. I think it's 24-inch, not 27-inch. But it looks fairly similar to the studio display. It's cheaper. It's about a third of the cost. So it'd be interesting for me to see how much cheaper it actually feels and how much worse it actually looks than the studio display. And it's weird. With content, you begin to get a flavour of what people like. And any time I write about the studio display, it seems to get quite a lot of views and quite a lot of reads. So I was wondering why that is, considering it's now, 18 months? Just over a year since it's been released. And there's so much I don't know about my devices. I saw a video clip at the top of the end. 300 iOS tips. Jeez, Sharon, jeez. Oh, yeah, I'm sure, I don't know, 300. That is, I'm thinking of making a short later on today, possibly, actually, all to do with something new that's comes to Apple TV. Are you guys big into Apple TV? I absolutely love it, and it's probably the platform that I use most here in the UK to watch TV through. I used to use a satellite provider, and I rarely watch that at all anymore. In fact, I've got the box unplugged. I've got an old DVD player plugged in because I've been watching some old episodes of Veep, if you remember that, and they weren't available anywhere else apart from on DVD. So I've got a DVD player plugged in. Talk about old tech. But Apple TV, I'm absolutely loving, and that, fun enough, is when I use my AirPods Max the most. Is when I'm watching Apple TV. They sound stunning. The head tracking, the spatial audio when you're watching something on Apple TV, certainly in the evening when I'm sitting on the sofa alone, they sound just amazing. They sound so good. I don't know if it's when they're in the still of the night that everything just comes to life and sparkles and shines more. I mean, they're good anyway, but with Apple TV, they are brilliant. But yes, I'm thinking if I get time, I might make a short after I finish with the stream. And I was going to make a short about a new program that's coming on. I forget what it's called. It stars Idris Elba. And I know it's coming on. I did have an email about it. I can't remember. Let me see if I can find it. I should have left it in my inbox, really, shouldn't I? That would have been the smart thing to do. It is called Hijack with Idris Elba. And I was just thinking about making a promo about that. And I was going to use more Idris' face than mine because, let's face it, he's a lot more handsome. He might get some clicks as well. Can't wait for the immersive Apple TV content. Oh, yeah, exactly. When we begin, and I believe they're already shooting content now when in the Apple TV studios for getting ready for Apple Vision when it comes out. So there will be content coming. I don't know how that's going to, we clearly can't integrate with Apple TV, but maybe there'll be more 3D movies being shot. I believe that is already the case. And I would have thought media consumption with Apple Vision is just going to be insane. It's going to be amazing. It really is. It might change the way you tell stories. There's so much to view. Yeah, absolutely. And it makes you wonder how long it will be before this medium that we've got now and that we're used to on YouTube will begin to seem dated as well. I mean, I know you've got the likes of Peter McKinnon and Marquez who shoot in 8K and upload in 8K. But even so, even at that quality, you just begin to wonder how long is it going to be before video begins to look quite ordinary. And the thing is also our brains will begin to expect more and will begin to want to have more, and the bar will be raised. And once we've seen content that looks as good as it does on Apple Vision, it's not going to be long before we think, well, that's what I should expect. That is the normal. That is what I want. I promise you, it's not going to be long. It really isn't. It's amazing how we adapt very quickly, and what was once considered high technology, and in actual fact, coming back to DVDs. I was bemoaning the fact last night that there was the government warning at the bit, you can't copy, it's all piracy laws. Yeah. I was bemoaning the fact I can't jump through this, and you get so impatient. You get so used to with video now, anything you watch, any content, streaming content. Obviously on Apple TV they have the skip intro, skip reminder. You can just get straight to the meat and veg. You can get to exactly where you want to be in any given program. That you very quickly become accustomed to the technology that you've got, and it staggered me how quickly you kind of forget what used to be good 5-10 years ago. Just seemed old hat. I mean, don't even think about VHS. And I know some kids now are looking at and using cassette tapes, which were awful the first time around. Why you'd want to get back to cassettes, I don't know. But equally, it's the new technologies. Yes, Apple Vision, I think, is going to have a big effect over pretty much everything we do. And it will have a rub on Apple TV, I'm sure. As I say, clearly you won't be able to watch content that's made for Apple Vision on there, but I've got a feeling there'll be some unity. Apple have been very clever in the way they've strategized themselves, the position they put themselves in. Let's go for that term, shall we? They've been building all of these platforms in the background, getting ready for Apple Vision and the next phase of where media consumption is going to go. Nothing will convince me otherwise. The fact they got into live sport when they did, the fact they launched Apple TV when they did. Don't forget, when Apple TV was first launched, it was a bit of a laughing stock. People said there's no content, there's nothing to watch, it's just the morning show and that's kind of it. And suddenly now they've got an Oscar to their name and they're a big player and they are a heavy hitter. And of course, we know they're going for more Oscars because there's a Martin Scorsese film that's coming out later this year, which is being released in theatres first, in cinemas first, because you need to have it as a cinema release first to be nominated for Oscars. It's a new rule that the Oscars have put in place, and Apple want to make sure or give themselves as good a chance as possible of having some more Oscar success, which shows you the weight that they've got and how much they can carry. Just looking at some of these messages here, can make some National Geographic content. The same, yes, absolutely, Michael. That's going to be absolutely amazing. And they say about one. So it's about 120 hertz. Yes, Sharon. Yeah, Sharon. We didn't have you on last week when we talked about Apple Vision. I'm assuming that you're interested in it as well and looking forward to it as well. It looks like it's going to be something sensational, and I think it's going to drive the way that we, that we consume media generally. It can't not. If we, as much as it's going to be cutting edge for a while and only the select few will have it for a while, it's going to be the kind of thing that very soon becomes commonplace, and again we get used to that level of quality of media. It's going to be insane, it really is. And again, if it opens up an even bigger screen to us, Michael just mentioning National Geographic, no, YouTube 360 hasn't taken off yet. No, exactly. We're reticent to change, but when it comes on, certainly when it's this much of a sea change, I think then we'll almost be forced kicking and dragging into it. I think we'll have to accept there's a point that it's too good not to want. I don't know how I'm going to get my hands on it. I don't know how soon I will get my hands on it. But now, having been involved with it as much as I have been during the course of this year, writing about it, making videos about it, I desperately want to get my hands on a pair and see what the experience is like. I had a very interesting call this morning. It's one of those ones, unfortunately, I can't tell you much about because I've got an NDA around it. But I might be getting to see some of the OS, possibly later this year. Very early days yet, I don't know. But we'll see. Something might come along. But I absolutely cannot wait for it. And yeah, just getting back to Apple Vision again, Apple TV again for a moment. That is how far they've come. That they're now basically a movie studio. They're turning out so much content. I watch so much on the ears. I mean, once you see a promotion, yeah, yes, exactly, Sharon, yeah. And promotion, that's actually something interesting that you've brought up there. Promotion seems to matter to me more the smaller the screen gets. When you look at an iPhone that's got promotion as opposed to one that hasn't, you notice it absolutely immediately. But when I look at Macs, when I've got the studio display alongside the MacBook Pro, it's not as obvious to me. I don't know if that's just me missing something there, but my eyes don't notice it. Whereas on an iPhone, it becomes really apparent really, really quickly as to that 120 hertz refresh rate. But again, it's true what you're saying, Shan. We get used to that quality, and it's that quality that we want, we expect, and once it's there is no turning back. Now I would generally not think of watching something that wasn't in 4K on Apple TV. And when I watch some of the stuff that was on that satellite provider that I spoke to you about, it just looks so old, basically. And interesting, one of the things I do enjoy watching a lot is Formula One. Now, when that's on Apple TV and it's in 4K and I've got headphones on, it's such a real experience, but it makes you wonder how much further forward that can go. I mean, Formula One on Apple Vision, just imagine how immersive that could be. Presumably, you could be in the pits, you could be car side, you could be with the driver virtually as he gets ready to get in the car. A sport like Formula One, outside of the actual race itself, could be absolutely insane. It really could. I've only just thought about now talking with you guys, but it could be absolutely phenomenal when you think about how that could change our perception of it. Even watching a race, if you've got basically an iMac screen in front of you, you've got a huge wraparound screen in front of you, you can consume the race sitting back and watching the cars go round on a screen that size in the definition that we've heard is meant to be absolutely staggering. Then just think, wow. Yeah, and then all the pit interviews, and when you want to look at car crashes and what's going on with the car, the damage to the car, you'd be there actually with them. I've just had a wasp come into the studio. I'm hoping it's not going to bite me. Trouble is, I've got all the windows open here because it's so hot. For the UK, we're actually going through a little bit of a heat wave. We hit 30 at the weekend, which for us is quite extreme. So I'm just keeping an eye on a wasp and hoping it's going to go back out the window where it came from. I wonder if I should possibly go and encourage it in a second, but we're okay just for the time being. If you hear me scream, you know that I can see it's coming at me. But yeah, I think content consumption is about to go to the next level. It will happen definitely. Oh, the wasp is coming near me now. Hold on, just a moment. I'm just going to encourage it out of the window with a little spray of. Right, I think we've got it. Hopefully, we've got rid of the wasp. I hope. Right, I think we're okay. Hopefully, it'll find the window and it will leave me alone now. There you go. I've never had that happen before. A wasp interrupt something when I'm live, so I do apologise, but I don't particularly fancy like getting bitten by a wasp. Hopefully it's going to leave me now. Yes, but it will definitely affect my lifetime. I'm sure the technology will move on very, very quickly from here on in. It'll probably sort of splutter for a little bit, but then once it actually gets going, it will really gather at pace. I think my working life too will alter fairly quickly as well. I would have thought spatial computing is something that will affect my working life. I'm sure I'll end up working on a big screen in front of me, and I love large screens. So this for me is an absolute nirvana. This is just heaven sent to be able to work wherever I want pretty much on a screen size of a big screen with fantastic definition, the kind of work I do, which is Lightroom, Photoshop, video editing and audio editing. Okay, audio editing doesn't need great quality of panel, but the bigger the screen certainly, the better it is. So I really can't wait for this to happen. I didn't realise at the start of this year quite how involved I would be with it, but I'm beginning to get a measure of how good it is, and I am so excited about wanting to get not only get my hands on, but just get involved more in the AR, VR world. People saying sports would be sleep. Yeah, absolutely. Horror movies. Okay, Dave is in as well. Hello, my man, Dave. Hello. We're talking all sorts of things. If you haven't checked out iCave Dave's channel, it's well worth looking at as well. He talks everything Apple, and yeah. You can't steal my Sharon B. I'm sorry, Dave. Sharon obviously just likes the name Dave or David, I guess, and it's lovely having you both in with me this afternoon. I'm enjoying these live streams. I'm just going to do them once a week. I did 2 last week. It'd just be 1 a week, I think, for the time being. And I think Wednesdays should generally fit in pretty well. And this kind of time, as we've already established, you're never going to get a perfect time for everybody around the world, but at least we're getting a little bit of the States so they wake up and go to work, and maybe just sitting down in the office first thing. And in the UK, maybe as people are finishing work and going home, then yeah, I think 3:30 is a reasonable time. Hopefully it fits in with most people. I can only do my best. But Dave, it's lovely to see you. Yes, Sharon is brilliant. She made a lovely comment last week, and Michael's back with us as well. And I'm beginning to work out this community thing now with YouTube. It really does make a difference. The more you put in, the more you invest, the more you seem to get back. And Dave and I, that's something we've certainly chatted about, and it's very true. If Dave was encouraging me to go do live streams a little while ago, and it was something I kind of walked away from because I wasn't quite sure about how it'll work. But yeah, the more you invest into the community and the more you give people, the more they give back to you, which is just what it's all about. And Michael is saying VR's changed horror games forever. I'm scared by a movie or games, but being immersed in that way in VR. Yeah, do you game regularly at the moment in VR then, Michael? I don't know. I know I've spoken to a couple of people that game in it, and they say it's a whole nother experience. And, it's not, gaming's unfortunately something that kind of passed me by. I don't know why, I just never really got it. But that's not to say that now, as we come into this new era, that it's not something I might begin to look into. Sports for me is the big one. I think to watch tennis or Formula One in AR is going to be just amazing. And something like tennis actually could work very well. Of course, it's quite a small court, so that means it'd be able to follow it really, really closely. I'm also watching a test match at the moment. Cricket, it's a hard game to explain. I won't even bother. But Big O4 is pretty amazing. So Dave's been playing with the VR for the first time. Yes, I saw your video actually, Dave. And yes, I know you've been looking into VR and making videos about it. And of course, Dave also caused quite a stir at the new Battersea store, Apple store in London, when he took in his classic Mac with him. And we've had a laugh about that before, but he really did cause quite the stir. He really did. But yes, I think the fact I've been behind on also first time at F1. You're going to Silverstone next weekend, to see Formula One, Dave. Well, I went there. I've done 2 Grand Prix, I think, in my life. Yeah, I've done 2. I did Silverstone and I went to Monte Carlo. I've got a sneak sniff. I did one more, but I definitely did those two, and they're fantastic experiences. The sound is unreal, and the whole atmosphere. As much as you don't really keep track of the race live as well as you do sitting at home, the atmosphere, the sound, the smell, everything goes with it is just stunning when you're live. And Michael's saying, I game when I can in VR. It's such a different experience to flat screen gaming. Yeah, I'm guessing it would be. I mean, that's the thing. If you've been used to just using a screen, suddenly going into AR where you can feel the game that you're in, and I'm guessing that you're much more immersed into it. I'm guessing it all becomes very real and wrapped around you, and you get sucked into the experience. Would that be the kind of thing that you're talking about? And I bet it really is a hell of an experience. And I'm going to hate the fact that I don't game regularly, that it's not something I won't have a yardstick for. I won't really know how good it is as opposed to how bad it was, or what its legacy was and where it came from. Because I've never been a gamer, it's going to be really hard for me to have something to compare it to. But speaking of the things, I've started for the first time recently to watch a lot more movies, and I'm watching them with kind of a content creator's eye, because obviously I've got a camera now, so I know everything about photography and filming clearly. But it's something that's really begun to interest me this year. And it's something I might speak about with Alex on our podcast when we record it. But I've started to watch a lot more movies because of making videos. And then you begin to wonder, well, how do they... Matty Harpoja put up a great podcast last week where he was speaking to a DP, director of photography, on a movie. And it was a really good insight into what goes on before they even get the cameras rolling. But of course, movies are going to have to move with the times. The way they're shot, they're going to have to. I mean, clearly Apple and movies they're making in the future will have an eye to AR. But I think movies in general are going to have to accept that a lot of their content in the not too distant future is going to end up being experienced on Apple Vision or something like Apple Vision, because I can't believe they have it their own way for long. I'm sure they've set the bar high and they've thrown down the gauntlet now, but other people will clearly have to follow if they're to keep pace with what Apple are doing, because Apple will not be allowed to be the only ones in the market that are supplying movies that are this good. And again, it comes back to what we've been talking about. Once you've got used to that quality of content, you're not wanting to go back to what it used to be. Absolutely not. So the movie machine is going to have to learn how to morph and move with the times as well. We are in a really exciting period at the moment, and it makes you wonder where other tech is going to start to fall a little bit by the wayside, and where, for instance, laptops that we use, they're going to suddenly seem very old, aren't they? If we're into spatial computing, all the kit I've got in front of me now is going to seem unnecessary. Why would you want to be sat at a desk with a small screen in front of you when you can be sat anywhere, to some degree, outside even, with Apple Vision on and productively work in glorious colour, great size screens, without a keyboard even attached to you? It's just, we are such exciting times. I mean, the phone, everything about this, really, you think about it, this can't go much further. There's not much more they can do with these now, which makes you realise that, again, we've been through a massive period of change. Obviously, with the web coming through in the last 30 years as it has and changing everything that we do, devices moved with it, smartphones became a thing. And now, I mean, I think it is fair to say that Apple Vision has a chance of following on from where, or the legacy that iPhone created. From the smartphone, we're going to get into smart viewing, and spatial computing could very easily be the next era that we're heading into. And it's just so exciting to see where things are heading. So just bringing it back to what we were talking about with iOS, that makes me think that, again, we just need maybe to take a break from expecting big new updates and changes every single year. There's a limit to how much better things can get, full stop. And as we've got so many exciting new things around the corner that are about to break and happen anyway, I would tend to think, let's just breathe. Let's actually just be satisfied with what we've got just for a moment, rather than always wanting something new and better. It doesn't necessarily follow, because what we have is already really, really good. And at times I just think we need to stop putting pressure on and just sit back. I mean, out of the things that I highlighted, for instance, that we were going to be getting, some of the highlights in iOS, we mentioned the moving new screensavers that are coming to Mac, and also we mentioned the widgets that are coming to Mac. That's pretty much it as far as I could see for Sonoma. The smart stacks and the new faces, along with some health benefits to watch. iOS, we're getting the live voicemail and the posters and improvements to AirDrop. And I can't remember, there wasn't that much on iPad, I don't think. Again, I think it got some lifestyle changes coming through. But out of those, I wonder what are the areas you're most looking forward to, and what can you see yourself using the most? The live voicemail interests me. I don't get that many voicemails left. I think it's a generational thing. When my mum was still alive, I used to get voicemails from her more regularly. I haven't left anyone a voicemail in a very long time. I can't remember the last time I had to check a voicemail out. And I suppose the only time it come in useful is if you think it's a spam kind of or junk call that's coming over. You don't recognise the number. I'm very wary about answering numbers that I don't recognise. So sometimes I let those ring out. And I suppose if they were being answered in live voicemail, that would be kind of handy. Just because I don't necessarily recognise the number doesn't mean that I shouldn't pick it up. And having a way to screen a call like that, it's actually a throwback, isn't it, to the old answer phones. You remember when you used to have a cassette machine by the side of your telephone, and it used to answer the phone and used to pick up, only get voicemails from scams. There we go. That's exactly right, Michael. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So I'm really careful with not picking up the phone to numbers, certainly if it's a withheld number, which in the UK, there's an annoying habit that solicitors, when I've been, gone through house purchase and stuff, use solicitors, their number often comes through as withheld, as do doctors and hospitals. The last time, it's going back a few years, lucky, that I was dealing with a hospital, all the numbers from that hospital were withheld. So I didn't pick up, and after missed calls, and they went to voicemail, of course. Whereas now with live voicemail, it means that if I realise, actually, I do need to take that call, I can immediately intervene. But I was saying, it's going back to those old cassettes and micro cassettes you used to get by the side of the telephone that were answering machines, and you used to have to sit and record a really bad message, didn't you? That was played out. If Mr. and Mrs. whatever aren't at home, please leave your number, your message after a telephone number. I still remember the answer phone we had at home with mum and dad very, very clearly. So live voicemail is almost kind of getting back to that, and I'm kind of looking forward to it, but I won't use it an awful lot. The wallpapers and the posters that are coming for iOS, yeah, it'd be a nice touch, but really, it's but again, it's one of these lifestyle changes, isn't it? Hope this comes to the UK soon. Oh yeah, absolutely. Dave, what are you doing about getting your hands on Apple Vision? I'm just wondering, because we know they're coming out in the US first. I don't even think Canada. I think it's just the US. We haven't got a date yet, as we all know. They just said early in 24. I'm guessing probably sometime around spring, but I don't know how easy it's going to be to get a pair from the US. Bearing in mind, I think they're doing fitting for you. Name drop was good. Yes, name drop. Actually, yes, name drop does look good. Name drop is useful. That will work well, being able to just bump contacts over. But yeah, I don't know how easy it's going to be able to get a pair over, because I think they're going to, certainly if Battersea stores anything to go, but I think they're going to have fitting sessions there where you go in and get a perfect fit. I read something this week that there's going to be some sort of scanner that iPhone uses to help scan the face to try and make sure you've got a better fit. I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. But so that's where the whole trying to get them probably a holiday, yeah, be an expensive holiday then, Dave. But yeah, and then bring them back. I'm just wondering how seamless the use will be over, because obviously you've got to get maybe a prescription lenses sorted out. You've got to get the screen gasket, the face gasket sorted out as well. So it's quite a bit to do. But they really are ever such exciting times, and I can't wait to see what it's all like. I don't know how early on I'll get one, but I'm hoping to get to see one fairly soon as they come out. So guys, I think that's kind of about it for today. I think we've covered everything we needed to. Thank you for getting involved. Thank you for coming back and joining me this week. I hope the posts did help. I put one out on Twitter, and I put out a post on my community page as well. And David Blackman's just joined in. Dave, hello, David. Lovely to see you. Yes, I know that Ada use your developer kit for the Vision Pro. I mean, I can hang around for a few more minutes if people are joining in, just getting from work. I'm more than happy to hang around for a moment or two. I was going to totter off on my way and think about making that short about Idris Elba and Hijack. which I will be watching tonight. I'm definitely going to be sitting down and watching that. It looks just my sort of thing. That and Platonic are both released on a Wednesday. As I say, I do like my little bit of Apple TV. So Sharon was asking Dave if he's used the developer kit yet for Vision Pro and Winway, and had an error because it was locking in XRS. So there have been some user issues already, which I suppose is to be expected. I believe the scan happens on the iPhone at some point at the purchase in the Apple Store. Yeah, that's exactly what I understand it, that you're scanning as much information as you can from your phone, so when you get to your fitting session, the face gasket is as near to right as possible, and then we know it's got the IPD motors in there so that lenses will all be properly and correctly adjusted each time you wear it, and then it's just a case also of the Zeiss lenses if you happen to be wearing prescription as well. But, guys, I think that's around it. David Blackman, it was lovely to catch up with you. I know we're just wrapping up now, but almost immediately, as soon as this finishes, it will be up for re-watching over on the channel. So if you fancy catching up with anything that we've spoken about, and if you want to leave comments after the stream is finished, I'll be more than happy to pick those up and come back to you and chat through some more. But I'll be back almost certainly next Wednesday, I think, at the same time at 3:30. I'm going to try and make this as regular a thing as I can, so you know where to be and I know where to be and set my week around it. So hopefully, guys, you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for joining in, and enjoy the rest of your week. I say I'm off to record the podcast with Alex tomorrow. This week's video is already up, and then I've already got plans about what I'm thinking of making for content next week. And Michael Grant saying, I was able to use it and translate it, yeah. All good. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining in today. Been a pleasure as ever. I've really enjoyed it, and I thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Michael. I really do enjoy these live streams. I almost enjoy them more than the video because I know there wasn't as many people involved today, but that's absolutely cool. It's lovely to be with you and just talk about what you want to talk about. And don't forget, if there's anything you'd like me to talk about on future live streams as well, drop me a message, get in touch, and just let me know what it is, and we will just talk the afternoon or the morning away and talk about all the bits you want to know about, and I'll fill in with bits that I want to talk about as well. So guys, thank you ever so much, and I will see you next week at the same time. See you soon. Bye.